Hey guys, and welcome to another Evercade deep dive completion review. And what's a completion review, you may ask? Where I need to complete an Evercade game from start to finish. It doesn't matter how many load states I use, and it doesn't matter how many save states, just as long as I can complete the game before I do this review. And today's little gem that we're looking at is Edward Randy, the Cliffhanger from Data East Arcade Collection number 2, Purple Cart number 12. Let's get into it. Strap in and don't look down, folks, because today we're clinging to the ledges, dodging explosions and uppercutting danger in the face. This is Edward Randy the Cliffhanger on Evercade, and this game doesn't just walk, it sprints, somersaults and crashes through everything like a 90s action movie with no brakes. Think Indiana Jones meets an arcade roller coaster. Fast, wild and totally over the top. From wild boss battles to explosive set pieces, this game throws everything at you and then the kitchen sink, just for fun. Let's dive into the chaos and find out if Edward Randy still clings to greatness in 2025 or if this cliffhanger finally lost its grip. As always, we'll be looking at the story, the sound, and the gameplay, and a little later on, I'll be letting you know my Evercade stats on how long it took me to complete the game. But before we do any of that, let's look at some interesting facts behind Data East and the development of this game. So before cinematic gameplay became a buzzword, Edward Randy the Cliffhanger was already living it. Developed by Data East in 1990, the game was built to feel like a non-stop Hollywood-style thrill ride. The developers clearly took cues from big-screen blockbusters like Indiana Jones, The Rocketeer, and Die Hard. But instead of just referencing them, they just packed their arcade machine with set pieces straight out of a summer action flick. From the opening moments, you're swinging on your whip over exploding tanks, leaping from train cars under heavy gunfire, and battling enemies atop moving blimps. These are chase scenes, mid-air flights, wrecking ball escapes, and so much cinematic chaos that each level feels like its own final act. The pace of the game doesn't just keep you playing, it makes you feel like a star stuntman of a forgotten VHS classic. Despite its ambition and style, Edward Randy never got the global recognition it deserved. Released only in arcades and never ported to any home console, this game remained almost entirely unknown outside of Japan. And it didn't help that Data East, though very prolific, didn't push the title internationally, and it just quietly vanished from most arcades not long after release. For years, Western players had no idea the game existed. It wasn't until the rise of arcade emulators and retro game preservation that Edward Randy was rediscovered, becoming a cult favorite among collectors and retro fans alike. Now, thanks to collections like the Evercade series, this cinematic oddball finally has a second life and a global audience that's finally catching up to what Japan quietly knew all along. Now, this game was just way too advanced for its time. Back in 1990, Edward Randy just wasn't ahead of the curve, it was laps ahead. While most arcade games were content with a few layers of scrolling and some sprite flipping, Edward Randy went full Hollywood blockbuster. We're talking 5 to 6 layers of parallax scrolling, massive destructible environments, and more sprite scaling than a theme park map zoom. Every stage is a moving set piece. Buildings collapse, tanks exploding chunks, and planes buzz the screen. All while Randy himself flips, kicks, and flies like he's auditioning for Indiana Jones, the anime. And all this was running on Data East's custom arcade board, which could pump out so many animations that some single levels in this game have more frames of movement than entire NES games. And that's why it's no surprise then that the home consoles didn't even try to port this game. The SNES and Genesis just couldn't handle it without stripping the soul right out of the experience, and Edward Randy was arcade only, and that exclusivity helped build its cult mystique. On the surface, Edward Randy looked like a standard side-scrolling action game, but when you dive right in it, something sneaky is happening. The game has an eerie way of never feeling exactly the same way twice, and that's because Edward Randy uses a mix of subtle branching paths and semi-randomized events. In one run, a tank might barrel in from the right, and in another, the same tank, yep, you guessed it, it comes from behind. Enemy soldiers spawn from different rooftops, airstrikes might come early or later, and even bosses sometimes enter differently or delay their attacks. It's not true RNG, but it's enough to make you feel like the game is watching your playstyle and adapting to it. That's way ahead of its time. It gives the impression of a game that's alive, pulsing with tension, never fully predictable. This kind of dynamic gameplay wouldn't become common until later years in big budget console games. But here it is, in an obscure arcade game made from the 1990s, quietly laying the groundwork for future design philosophies. Let's take a look at the story. Hold on to your leather jackets and tighten those whip grips because Edward Randy isn't here to explain, well, anything. Or give you a breather. Nope, this game throws you headfirst into madness like you're late for a caffeine-fueled action movie directed by a caffeinated squirrel on roller skates. You are Edward Randy, part treasure hunter, part secret agent, and all parts how does this guy still have a pulse? He's rocking a whip that's seen more action than a Hollywood stunt double, a leather jacket that's probably got its own stunt coordinator, and confidence that screams risk assessments never met her. And his mission to stop an evil empire from, well, you guessed it, doing something with a mysterious ancient artifact. Why? Well, it beats even Edward. The game won't tell you. Maybe it controls the weather, maybe it's a doomsday device, or maybe it's just really, really valuable on eBay. Either way, these villains are seriously bad news. Nazi steampunk death squad vibes complete with tanks, planes, gunships, deaf robots, and probably at least 3 OSHA violations per square foot, because safety is clearly not their thing. But Edward? Nah, he couldn't care less. He's too busy hijacking trucks like a maniac, leaping across exploding trains with the grace of a Red Bull Tarzan, and swinging through the air like his life depends on it, because it actually does. Honestly, this guy pulls more stunts in the first level than most games manage in their entire runtime. And just when you think you might catch a breath, it struts in a mysterious girl, all classic anime sparkles and mystique. Is she the key to this artifact? Edward's long-lost love? A hostage? A magical talking cat disguised as a human? The game doesn't even say, because the game doesn't even care. And we don't care, because right after she appears, a blimp crashes into a skyscraper and the ground beneath your feet collapses like a cheap deck of playing cards, and you're suddenly plummeting through explosions like a firework on steroids. This game isn't about subtlety or plot holes, it's a non-stop cinematic rollercoaster of intensity. Imagine if Indiana Jones and Metal Slug had a sugar-fueled baby. And just when you think it's all over, nope. Cue another boss fight, another frantic escape, and another explosion the size of a small moon. Edward Randy throws everything: trucks, planes, helicopters, and that kitchen sink from every possible angle, like it was trying to win an award for most things exploded in 30 seconds. Strap in, because Edward Randy doesn't just break the fourth wall, it crashes directly through it, sets it on fire, and then casually walks away, whistling. Let's take a look at the sound. Get ready, because Edward Randy's sound design is less background noise and more full-on Hollywood blockbuster soundtrack blasting through your brain. Composed by the talented Akira Talamoto, one of Data East's arcade sound heroes, the music grabs you by the collar and throws you into a non-stop action movie vibe where you're the star. Imagine this: the moment Edward Randy steps onto the screen, the heavy score kicks in like a muscle car roaring out of the gate. It's pure adrenaline, pulsing beats, and electrifying melodies that feel like they were made for slow-motion helicopter jumps, explosive chase scenes, and daring escapes from collapsing skyscrapers. If John Carpenter's Escape from New York and Indiana Jones had a love child, this would be their soundtrack. Every note is packed with so much energy, it's like the music itself is strapped to a rocket and set to blast off. The sound tells the story without a single line of dialogue. Each pulse and crescendo screams, "This is serious business," but with a wink, because Edward Randy also knows it's ridiculously fun. Now, the sound effects, oh man, they're the cherry on top on this explosive Sunday. Gunshots pop like fireworks going right off next to your ear. Explosions hit so hard they almost shake your couch. Don't blame me if the cat bolts. The screech of tires, the revving of engines, and that sharp whip crack. It's all crafted to make you feel like you're right in the middle of a high octane action flick, not just a pixelated arcade game. And these sound effects were expertly crafted by Hiroki Yoshida, who brings every boom, crash, and snap to life with precision. You've got moments where the soundtrack surges like the swelling score of a climactic fight scene, only to be smashed into the roaring chaos of crashing trains. It's like someone handed the sound team the director's megaphone and just said, make it louder, make it crazier, and make it 10 times as awesome. No quiet moments, no awkward exposition scenes with mumbling NPCs, just pure, unrelating sonic mayhem. It's exactly what you want when you're playing a game where the plot moves faster than Edward's whip cracks and explosions are your frequent travel companions. So if you want your ears to feel like they've been in the front row seat to an 80s action blockbuster, screaming, guns blazing and explosions raining down, then Edward Randy's soundtrack delivers it with style, swagger, and a whole lot of punch. Let's take a look at the gameplay. If Edward Randy were a movie, the gameplay would be that wild, over-the-top stunt sequence where the hero is effortlessly cool, but the world around him is exploding in every direction. And that's exactly what this game delivers. Simple controls paired with absolute on-screen madness. You don't need a PhD in button mashing or some secret combo to play this. Edward Randy's control scheme is surprisingly straightforward. Jump, whip, shoot, run, and that's basically it. But don't let that fool you. On screen, it's like a fireworks factory exploded in an 80s action flick. The screen is a whirlwind of flying bullets, crashing vehicles, stomping robots, and chains swinging from the ceiling. And enemies swarm from every direction like they're auditioning for a chaos competition, and you have to keep up with split-second timing that makes you feel like a stunt double dodging death itself. The beauty is in this perfect contrast. Your fingers only need to master a handful of moves, but the screen is absolutely nuts. It's like being handed the keys to a rocket launcher and told, go on, have some fun. The gameplay never slows down, yet it never overwhelms you because the controls are intuitive enough to let you focus on surviving the madness. Every level feels like a fast-cut montage from a Michael Bay movie, except you're the star doing all the impossible leaps, swings, and shootouts. Trucks barrel towards you at breakneck speed, explosive barrels litter the path like tempting time bombs, and 1 second you're scaling a wall and the next you're jumping between moving planes while dodging missiles. And let's talk about those enemies. They're relentless and they're diverse. Tank drivers who can spot you through walls, robot sentries with laser eyes, and gunships that dive bomb you like they have a personal vendetta. But with those simple controls, you get to play it ice cool. Whip here, jump there, shoot when you have to, and somehow pull off these sequences that look way harder than they feel. Of course, with all this madness comes a hefty challenge. Expect to die a lot. But in Edward Randy, failure is not just part of the show. Every game over is a chance to retry with a little more swagger and maybe, just maybe, pull off a stunt sequence so ridiculous it deserves its own slow motion replay. So yeah, the gameplay is a masterclass in easy to learn, hard to master, with the added bonus of looking like a Hollywood explosion scene choreographed by a caffeinated daredevil. Simple controls meets the chaotic spectacle, and the result is pure arcade gold. Now, I paid $56.18 for this cart, but because we're only reviewing one game and this has 12 on it, we can't say that I paid that. We have to say that I paid $4.68 for it. Meaning, for me to get my money's worth and do the equation of $10 per hour, I'll need to complete and play this game for longer than 28 minutes. And I can say with disappointment that this was one of the first games where I didn't make my equation. I completed this game in 26 minutes, meaning I did not get my $10 per hour ratio, which is a big cross in my books. I had a play count of 1, a load count of 1, and a save count of 1, meaning I completed this game on my first playthrough. And now it's time for my review on Edward Randy the Cliffhanger. Buckle up, let's do this. So for the story, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. It does try, it really does, but then just throws its hands up and says, let's just blow stuff up instead. Alright, here's the deal with Edward Randy's story. It tries to throw in some classic action movie ingredients. There's an ancient artifact that supposedly holds the fate of the world in its hands, and a mysterious girl who might be a love interest, a hostage, or just someone who wandered onto the set by accident. But honestly, the game barely gives a hoot about any of that. It's like the writer sat down, sketched out the artifact and some romance subplot and just shrugged and said, nah, let's just blow up some stuff instead. The story quickly takes a backseat, letting the explosions, the gunfights, and some insane stunts do all the talking. And you know what? That's perfectly fine in my book, because this game isn't here to be a Shakespearean drama, it's just a non-stop thrill ride. If Edward Randy was cast as a movie star, then it would have to be Tom Cruise, because he's the stuntman that does all those insane heart-stopping tricks that no one else would dare attempt. This game is basically a love letter to every stuntman who has ever taken the leap that made directors hold their breath. Leather jacket? Check. Classic 80s action hero vibe, worn like a badge that screams, I'm about to do something ridiculously dangerous and look cool doing it. The whip? It cracks with the power of thunder, slashing through enemies and obstacles like it's the real star of the show. You half expect the sound to echo in slow motion as Edward Randy swings through the chaos. And if it was a movie, those set pieces, oh man, imagine every pulse-pounding, jaw-dropping stunt sequence from a Tom Cruise blockbuster Mission Impossible. Jumping between speeding trains as explosions light up the sky, leaping from helicopters just as they start to fall apart, and dodging bullets while hanging off the side of a roaring truck, barreling through a war zone. It's all there, and it never lets up. This isn't just an action game, it's like watching Ethan Hunt go rogue in a neon-lit 80s world where physics and logic take a backseat to pure spectacle. Every level throws you into a new stunt sequence that's crazier than the last. One minute you're racing to a runaway train, and the next you're dangling from a helicopter's skids as gunships swoop in and somehow you're still alive. Or at least you get a quick respawn. And who wouldn't want to pay good money to see that movie? And that's why this game is so cool. It's like you're holding your breath, grinning like a kid throughout every level and shouting at the screen, "Don't look down, Randy." So yeah, the story scores a 5 out of 10. It's not deep or complex, and you won't find any plot twists that make you gasp, but it knows exactly what it is. A wild, stunt-packed roller coaster that's more spectacle than storytelling. And honestly, sometimes that's exactly what you want. Just don't come here expecting a cinematic masterpiece, come here for the crazy action, and stay for the sheer, unrelenting chaos. Let's look at the sound. I give the sound a solid 7 out of 10 because Edward Randy truly delivers an unforgettable audio experience that feels like an adrenaline shot straight to your ears. From the moment you hear the whip crack slicing through the chaos, you know that the game means business. The sound effects are sharp, punchy, and packed with personality. Explosives boom with the force of a Hollywood blockbuster, and gunshots snap crisply, and every clang, crash, and grunt adds to the impressive mayhem. You don't just hear the action, you feel it vibrating through your speakers like you're right there hanging off the side of the speeding train also. Now, the music is where Edward Randy really shines. Composed by the talented Akira Takemoto, the soundtrack is a pure, electrifying celebration of 80s magic. It's like someone bottled the essence of every neon-lit action movie chase scene and poured it straight into your headphones. Pulsing beats, soaring melodies, and relentless energy keeps your heart pounding through every insane stunt and every insane boss fight. The way the soundtrack and sound effects tag team each other is nothing short of spectacular. The music ramps up the tension during those nail-biting chase sequences and then kicks into overdrive when the explosions and gunfights hit their peak. It's a sonic roller coaster that pulls you deeper into the game's wild and over-the-top world. Sure, it's not perfect and some sound effects repeat a little too often, and the music loops can sneak up on you, but honestly, this just adds to the retro charm. It's like watching your favorite 80s action flick on repeat, but you still can't help but grin and cheer every time. All in all, the sound design in Edward Randy is a true standout. It's high octane audio assault that keeps your adrenaline pumping and your fingers ready for that next crazy button smash. For that, it earns a well deserved 7 out of 10. Let's talk gameplay. I give the gameplay also a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, it's pretty short. You might finish it before you even finish your arcade snack, but from the moment you hit start, it's a non-stop adrenaline-fueled madness that never lets up. Think of it like a roller coaster that's way too fast, way too wild, and way too much fun to get off early. What really blows my mind is how the game plays from all its angles. This isn't your grandma's side-scrolling beat-em-up, no sirree Bob. The camera spins around Edward Randy like it's trying to show off every ridiculous stunt. And I'm talking nearly 360 degrees of dizzying action. So much spinning, you're probably going to need a motion sickness bag just in case. The spinning camera makes every punch, whip, crack, and explosion feels larger than life. And enemies come at you from all directions, like being trapped in a very intense party where nobody wants to leave and they all have weapons. The best part, the controls are so simple, even your cousin who can't beat Tetris can pick this game up and start wrecking shop. No complicated combos, no mysterious button mash rituals, just pure straightforward smash everything kind of gameplay. Which is good, because with all the chaos on screen, you need to keep your eyes peeled and your reflexes sharp, or just hope the game is generous enough with all its continues. On screen, it's just total mayhem. Explosions everywhere, trains barreling by, gunships buzzing overhead, and Edward doing stunts that would make even the craziest action director say, alright, just tone it down a little bit, Edward. But this soundtrack cranks the energy up to 11, making you feel like you're in the middle of a blockbuster explosion montage, minus the popcorn. So yeah, the game's short, but it's turbocharged, whirlwind blast of 80s action movie madness. It's fast, flashy, and so ridiculously fun that you'll probably find yourself replaying it just to survive that spinning camera all over again. Just maybe keep some travel calm in your bag just in case. Overall, I give Edward Randy a 6 out of 10. Now, before you picture me as some grumpy arcade critic hiding behind a joystick, hear me out here. This game is like that epic action movie you watch on a Friday night. It's fast, flashy, and totally fun, but it's just over way too soon. Seriously, you'll be done before you can even say whip crack. And I was left sitting there like, wait, what? Is the game actually over? Where's the encore? The game's speed is a bit of a double-edged sword. Sure, it keeps the adrenaline pumping, but it also means you barely get to breathe, let alone explore this wild, weird world they built. And that world, man, it's awesome. Imagine if Indiana Jones took a wrong turn and ended in a steampunk fever dream. Gears, goggles, mysterious artifacts, and just the right amount of what the heck is going on here. I wish that they'd fleshed that world out a little more because it feels like a whole movie wanting to be made behind those pixelated explosions. And for Edward Randy himself, this guy does things no human should be able to do. He's swinging between airships, dodging jets, punching through armored tanks, and the game never bothers to explain how or why. There's zero backstory, no text, no dialogue. He's like a pulp action comic book hero dropped into a war zone, and that mystery is part of its charm. It feels like you're jumping into issue number 27 of a comic that you've never read before, and somehow loving every single panel. It's wild, it's ridiculous, and honestly, it's kind of brilliant. But hey, maybe the designers figured, why bother with the story when you can just blow up a train instead? And honestly, who am I to argue with that? The action is absolutely off the charts, non-stop stunts, a camera that spins so much it could win a dizzy contest, and explosions big enough to make your popcorn jump right out of the bucket. The style is pure 80s action movie gold. Leather jackets that say I'm way too cool for safety regulations, whips that crack louder than your neighbor's questionable karaoke, and a soundtrack that makes you want to do slow motion hair flips. If you love those over the top movies where the hero survives the impossible with a smirk and maybe a terrible pun, then Edward Randy the Cliffhanger is your pixelated paradise. Sure, it's short and the story is more sketchy outline than Oscar-worthy screenplay, but sometimes you just want to throw on your imaginary leather jacket and jump off on a speeding train without worrying about plot holes. And for that wild, chaotic, adrenaline-pumping experience, this game delivers like a stuntman in a helicopter chase. Loud, crazy, and absolutely unforgettable. So yeah, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 overall. It's not perfect, but a wild ride nonetheless that I would jump back into any day of the week. Just let's hope that next time they make something like this, it has a little bit more story, because I'm ready for that Indiana Jones meets steampunk epic that this game hints so strongly at. Thank you so much for watching another deep dive Evercade completion review. As always, give me a like, subscribe, and comment down below, because I would love to know your thoughts on games that are just way too short, just like this one. As always, stay odd, stay awesome, and we'll see you next time on another episode of The Odd Socks. See you later, guys.